Chapter 3: Mastering the Art of Strategic Silence and Deep Listening. In a world where everyone is competing to be heard, the person who has mastered strategic silence and deep listening stands out like a beacon. This isn't about being quiet or passive. It's about understanding that silence and listening are active, powerful tools that create profound attraction and influence. The psychology behind strategic silence is rooted in several key principles. First, silence creates space for others to reveal themselves. When you're comfortable with pauses and quiet moments, you give people permission to think, process, and share more deeply than they would in rapid-fire conversation. This creates intimacy and connection that most people rarely experience. Second, silence demonstrates confidence and self-control. People who feel the need to fill every moment with words are often operating from anxiety or insecurity. They're afraid that silence means they're boring, that they're not contributing enough, or that others will judge them negatively. Someone who is comfortable with silence projects the confidence that they don't need to prove themselves through constant verbal performance. Third, strategic silence makes your words more impactful when you do speak. If you're always talking, your words lose their weight and significance. If you speak thoughtfully, and only when you have something valuable to contribute, people listen more intently and value your input more highly. The neuroscience of listening reveals why deep listening is one of the most attractive qualities a person can possess. When someone feels truly heard and understood, their brain releases oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone. This creates feelings of trust, connection, and positive association with the person who provided that experience. Most people are terrible listeners, not because they don't care, but because they've never learned how to listen properly. They listen to respond rather than to understand. They're formulating their next comment while the other person is still speaking. They're filtering what they hear through their own experiences and judgments, rather than trying to understand the speaker's perspective. Deep listening is an active, engaged process that requires significant mental and emotional energy. It involves several key components that, when mastered, create profound attraction and connection. The first component is present moment awareness. Deep listening requires you to be completely focused on the person speaking and what they're communicating, both verbally and non-verbally. This means putting away distractions, making eye contact, and using your full attention to understand not just their words, but their emotions, intentions, and underlying needs. The second component is emotional attunement. This involves listening not just to the content of what someone is saying, but to the emotional subtext. Are they excited, anxious, sad, frustrated, hopeful? Often, the emotion behind the words is more important than the words themselves. When you can recognize and acknowledge someone's emotional state, they feel seen and validated in a way that creates deep connection. The third component is curiosity without judgment. Deep listening requires approaching others with genuine curiosity about their perspective, experiences, and thoughts. This means suspending your own judgments, opinions, and need to be right, and instead focusing on understanding how the world looks through their eyes. This level of curiosity is rare and incredibly attractive because it makes people feel valued and interesting. Most conversations involve people waiting for their turn to share their own thoughts and experiences. When someone encounters a person who is genuinely curious about them, it creates a powerful experience of being seen and appreciated for who they are. The fourth component is reflective feedback. This involves occasionally reflecting back what you've heard to ensure understanding and to demonstrate that you're actively engaged in the conversation. This might sound like, it sounds like you're feeling frustrated because, or if I understand correctly, you're saying that. This technique not only ensures clear communication, but also makes the speaker feel heard and understood. Strategic silence works in conjunction with deep listening to create what researchers call conversational leadership. This is the ability to guide conversations not through domination or excessive talking, but through thoughtful questions, strategic pauses, and creating space for others to explore their thoughts and feelings. People who have mastered conversational leadership understand that the person who asks the best questions often controls the direction and depth of the conversation. They know that a well-timed pause can be more powerful than any words. They understand that making others feel heard and understood is one of the most attractive things you can do. The practice of strategic silence also involves knowing when not to give advice or try to fix someone's problems. Many people, particularly those who are naturally helpful, make the mistake of immediately jumping to solutions when someone shares a challenge or concern. However, most of the time, people don't want solutions. They want to be heard and understood. Learning to sit with someone's discomfort without immediately trying to fix it is a profound skill that creates deep trust and connection. It demonstrates emotional maturity and respect for the other person's autonomy. It shows that you trust them to find their own solutions and that you value the process of being heard over the outcome of solving problems. The magnetic quality of deep listening extends beyond individual conversations to how you're perceived in group settings. In meetings, social gatherings, or any group dynamic, the person who listens well and speaks thoughtfully often emerges as a natural leader, even if they say relatively few words. This happens because deep listeners often have the most insightful contributions when they do speak. They've been paying attention to the group dynamic, understanding different perspectives, and processing information, while others have been focused on getting their own points across. When they finally contribute, their words often synthesize or elevate the conversation in ways that others find valuable and impressive. Developing these skills requires conscious practice and patience with yourself. In our fast-paced, instant communication world, the ability to slow down, listen deeply, and use silence strategically feels almost countercultural. But that's exactly what makes it so powerful and attractive. Start by practicing in low-stakes conversations. Focus on listening for understanding, rather than listening for your turn to speak. Practice being comfortable with brief pauses. Ask follow-up questions that demonstrate you've been paying attention. Notice how people respond when they feel truly heard and understood. As you develop these skills, you'll find that your conversations become more meaningful, your relationships deepen, and your overall attractiveness increases significantly. People will seek you out not because you're entertaining or impressive, but because you make them feel valued, understood, and heard.